Welcome, Reinhard.
Well, thanks, Jay.
This is within this project of co-interviews between Conduit Gallery artists. This is part 2 of Sullivan, Ziegler, Ziegler, Sullivan. So I'm with Reinhard Ziegler in his studio and with a painting in back. Historically, your training was primarily in photography, and your work is usually based in a photographic image. I say based in because it's the base image for most of your work, and actually not just a photographic image, but these are often silver gelatin prints, which are themselves about as beautiful as you can get in terms of surface and detail. But yet, in many of the early works, for example, in Small Movements and Along for the Ride, you then engage the blur of movement. So you just in the photograph itself, you disturb the surface and then alter them further physically, drawing on top of these images, usually with pastel put on by hand. So you, in a way, you add color, but you also blur the blur. And it suggests to me that there might be something missing and that you wanted to bring to it, because you already had a very provocative image to begin with. So I'm interested, what did you find missing in those, particularly in those early works, but I could maybe say later on, we can get to it, with the photographic form in general?
I think it's maybe, especially in those earlier works, Jay, which are really large scale. Those pieces, they are large black and white images, and as you said, gelatin silver, printed on a matte surface paper, which is just this luscious paper that has enough tooth to hold the pastel. And it's not so much that something is missing, but more that I'm further subtracting, the direct photographic reference of the object being photographed. And by subtracting more detail beyond the blur, but by adding the marks of the hand, the smear of the pastel, the layer upon layer that's actually being worked into the surface, that I've sort of jokingly called sculpting in 2 dimensions. That these very much try to move us into more of a dreamlike state, into more memory, into something non-specific, which kind of flies in the face of what we normally look to photographs to do for us. We look to photographs typically to be documents of a moment, of an experience, of a relationship, something that we take home and becomes a souvenir, if you will. And these, I'm trying to move away from that and invite the viewer into something that's much deeper in the brain, that lurks more in the realm of memory than it does in the realm of present experience.
In a funny sense, these images that we see from Marfa and Big Bend, Along for the Ride, have a very uncertain place. But there are other images that you have made that have a much more palpable sense of place. These images are from the Southern Plains, the Southwest, but you've also given us images of big hulking vessels, that are kind of at rest. And in a way, if we talked about place, say in this image, we're almost talking about the place is this border between this large slab of old ship and the water. where they're meted together in a strange mirroring, which also to me conjures up a whole sense of sound, not just place, but that this is more like a room than an open space. So I'm interested in your investigation of languages of place, which exists across a long period of time in your work, and how you've come to see place as you've progressed.
So the first three images that we just looked at, Marfa and Big Bend area, even though they're non-specific, you do have a sense of the thing is. When you look at these images, which were taken at a naval yard for a mothballed fleet on the Delaware River, a very peculiar photo shoot in this area where these massive lurking hulks, you're at street level in a car looking up at these things, and they're just take your breath away. And there's an echoing, if you will. The ships are completely empty. There's nothing inside them. And the water lapping up against their sides. And so the sense of scale in this case gives an entirely new definition of place, and it creates a further level of ambiguity. Many people who've seen this image, and it's another large image, it's about 8 feet across and about 40 inches high, begin to see the background as sort of a flaming sky, sunset, clouds, the dark areas, the horizon. And I love the fact that even though we're literally looking at the side of this warship with these taut mooring lines that are run across diagonally the surface, and then the black area is the water line, because these things are so high out of the water because there's nothing inside. The spatial ambiguity that this creates also creates a sense of ambiguity of place. Another example here, this is an aircraft carrier photographed dead on. It's probably 200 yards out from where I'm standing, and it takes on so many other references. It looks almost tornadic in its central shape, and it's hard to tell how deep and far away things are. And again, I love the fact that this particular work, to me, I felt very strongly creates further references about us as vessels, that we ourselves are containers of life, containers of relationships, containers of grace, even of beauty, and certainly of wonder. And I tried with these images to try to imbue them once again with more than just the document of the moment. And in this case, the place becomes more of an interior place. That refers back into myself. And when I take time to really look closely at these and try to either relax with the mystery or sort out the mystery, that it's more about me than it is about the thing outside of me.
I think maybe in this idea of more about you, it's interesting that these are images of huge forms that are very clearly and apparently bruised from going through the world. You're aware of, on the one hand, a tremendous sense of power in the scale, but you're also aware of a tremendous vulnerability, as these things have absorbed, all of the impacts of storms, of water, etc. Which is always surprising about old ships, is that they do look so fragile.
And as imposing as they are, there's another one that I didn't pull for our conversation today, but it's the bow of the ship, and it's and sitting way out of the water. And this steel is just enormously thick, just, you know,
Right.
spectacularly. And the thing is completely dented from every rivet to every rivet, just from the continual motion of the waves. And so the battering and the vulnerability that you're talking about is palpable.
You take this sense of almost impenetrable surface and just explode it. We were talking before we started. I had sent you this elusive email that I was asking you about the wound in your work, and you were trying to figure that out. Where actually I was trying to ask you about the sound in your work, but for these, they fully strike me as wounds. The way that the black rock just slices through this pristine white surface. And I should note here that I think that if I'm correct, only one in this series is an actual photographic print. All of these are actually paintings of black acrylic on white, based on photographic images. But again, you have this oscillation back, that there's something within the original photographic image and that really strikes you, but you didn't want to have that surface. You wanted a different surface, and in this case, you wanted the surface of paper and paint.
Yeah, and Jay, on these, the thing that propelled me to create this series of work are in Norway in the winter, and with black basalt rock croppings peeking out of the snow. And there's a train trip you can take from Oslo to Bergen. You can traverse the entire country in one day. It's amazing. And so kind of going over the pass, this is what one saw.
Mm-hmm.
As abstract as this looks, I mean, it was the simple act of squinting just a little bit to eliminate some detail, and this is what it looked like. This is not some big photo trick to create an abstraction that wasn't there. This is really what was going on outside the window. And then this is in Alaska, a photograph from a seaplane, and very much the same thing. Black volcanic rock against this stark white snow. And I've always been interested in this notion of essence or essential, which goes back from the Latin into spirit. And the spirit, the aroma, the essence, and there are all kinds of references in spiritual literature, as well as certainly in the Bible, about the spirit being the essential aspect of God. And I was just really interested in paring things down to the most rudimentary way of looking at what's out there, and to let the starkness be a representation of the beauty. And that maybe our knowledge is most precise and most direct at this essential level. So that was the investigation. The sad thing about this series is, in both instances of Alaska and Norway, I had nowhere intended this to be a documentary project, but in some ways it actually is, because these snowfields and glaciers, as we sadly know, are rapidly disappearing.
Yeah.
Also represent at a whole nother level a sense of loss.
Well, thank you, Reinhard. And it's been wonderful to have this time and to look at these images. And yes, this should give you a lot of impetus for people to come and see this upcoming exhibition, which will be very, very powerful. at Conduit Gallery in August.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Reinhard. Take care.
You too.